Miguel Torres stood near the playground in Central Park, quietly observing his 6-year-old son Tommy as the boy approached a woman sitting alone on a nearby bench. Tommy walked carefully, his small hands folded behind his back in the polite way Miguel had taught him whenever he needed to speak to someone he didn't know. It was their third visit to the park that month. As Miguel noticed where Tommy was heading, a familiar feeling of uneasiness tightened in his chest. He began walking faster, hopping to reach them before his son asked the question that had been troubling him for weeks. "Excuse me," Tommy said respectfully to the dark-haired woman. His voice carried a gentle mix of hope and caution, the kind children use when they are asking for something they truly want, but are not sure they're allowed to have. "Would you like to be my mommy for one day?" he asked shyly. "My dad says I shouldn't talk to strangers, but you seem really nice. I promise I'm a good boy. I always say please and thank you, and I try not to make any mess." Miguel reached them just in time to see the color drain from the woman's face. She gripped the edge of the bench, her fingers trembling slightly, as if she had suddenly been overwhelmed by emotion. Miguel expected the usual reaction, an awkward smile, a polite refusal, maybe even discomfort. But instead, the woman looked at Tommy with an expression that held both astonishment and deep sadness, as though the boy's simple request had touched something fragile inside her that had been carefully hidden for years. "Tommy, come back here for a moment," Miguel said quickly, his voice tense as his protective instincts kicked in. He wasn't sure what was happening, but the woman's sudden reaction worried him. For a brief second, he wondered if she might be overwhelmed in a way that could make the situation uncomfortable or unpredictable. Before Miguel could pull his son away, the woman took a shaky breath. "No one has ever asked me to be their mother before," she whispered softly, "not even just for fun." The words sounded fragile, almost like a confession she had kept hidden for a long time. Miguel stopped, the apology he had been about to say fading away. This wasn't the response he had expected. There was no irritation or rejection in her voice. Instead, there was something deeper, something that sounded like longing mixed with sadness. For a moment, Miguel forgot about his embarrassment. He suddenly found himself wondering what kind of life could make a simple, innocent request from a child feel so meaningful to a complete stranger. Tommy, sensing the shift in the woman's emotions the way children often do, didn't step back. Instead, he moved a little closer, his small face filled with concern. "Did I make you upset?" he asked quietly. "I didn't mean to make you feel bad." At his gentle words, the woman covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders trembled slightly as she struggled to control the emotions rising inside her. "You didn't hurt my feelings, sweetheart," she said after a long pause, trying to steady her voice. When the group arrived at the hotel, everyone was tired after the long journey. The lobby was warm and quiet, and soft music was playing in the background. While the others were checking in at the reception desk, Alex looked around the room and noticed a girl sitting near the window with a book in her hands. Her name was Elena. She seemed calm and focused, but when she looked up she noticed Alex standing nearby. They exchanged a polite smile. After a moment, Alex decided to introduce himself. "Hi, I'm Alex. Are you here with the tourist group too?" he asked. Elena closed her book and nodded. "Yes, I arrived this morning," she said. "I'm excited to explore the city. I've heard there are many beautiful places here." They began talking about the trip. Elena explained that she enjoyed traveling because it allowed her to learn about new cultures, meet people from different countries, and see historical places. Alex agreed and said that this was exactly why he liked tourism as well. Soon the rest of the group finished checking in. The tour guide announced that the group would have a short rest before the first SKURSER around the city. Before leaving, Elena said, "Maybe we'll see each other during the tour." Alex smiled and replied, "Yes, I hope so." Their journey in the city was only beginning, and many new experiences were waiting for them. In the evening, the tourist group gathered in the hotel lobby for their first excursion. The tour guide welcomed everyone and briefly explained the plan for the evening. The group would walk through the central streets of the city and visit several famous places. Alex and Elena joined the group and started the tour together. The city looked beautiful at night. The streets were full of lights, and many buildings had interesting architecture. The guide told stories about the history of the city and its most important landmarks. During the walk, Alex and Elena talked about their impressions. Elena said that she liked the atmosphere of the city and the friendly people. Alex agreed and said that traveling helps people understand the world better. The group stopped at the main square where tourists could take photos and enjoy the view. There were musicians playing in the street and many small cafes around the square. After some time, the guide announced that the excursion was finished and everyone could return to the hotel. Alex and Elena walked back together. They both felt that the first day of the trip was interesting and full of new experiences. They were excited to see what the next day would bring. Over the next few days, Alex and Elena found themselves spending more time together during the trip. They shared meals, explored museums, and wandered through parks and quiet streets, talking about their dreams, hobbies, and favorite books. Elena had a calm, thoughtful way of noticing small details around her. The way sunlight fell across old buildings, the colors of flowers in a courtyard, or the subtle sounds of the city at dusk. Alex found himself drawn to that sensitivity, and he began to see the city through her eyes. One afternoon, they visited a historic cathedral. While the group listened to the guide, Alex noticed Elena sketching quietly in her notebook. Curious, he asked about her drawing. She smiled and said she liked capturing moments that felt meaningful to her, even small ones that others might overlook. "I like remembering things the way I feel them, not just how they look," she explained. Alex felt a quiet admiration for her perspective. It made him realize that this trip wasn't just about sightseeing. It was about connecting with someone who saw the world in a way that resonated with his own curiosity and wonder. By the time the group returned to the hotel that evening, Alex and Elena had developed an unspoken understanding, a sense that they could share thoughts freely, laugh easily, and notice beauty in the same small things. Their friendship had started to feel like something rare and genuine, forming in the midst of unfamiliar streets and new experiences. On the third day of the trip, the group visited the city's largest park, a place filled with winding paths, fountains, and quiet benches tucked beneath old trees. While other tourists wandered aimlessly, Alex and Elena found a secluded spot near a small pond, away from the crowds. They sat together on a low stone wall, watching ducks glide across the water. For a long moment neither spoke. The gentle rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children created a peaceful silence. Finally, Elena broke the quiet. "I've always loved parks like this," she said softly. "They make me feel like the world slows down, even just for a little while." Alex nodded, realizing that he felt the same way. "It's like time pauses," he agreed, "and for a moment nothing else matters." As they talked, their conversation shifted from simple observations about the park to more personal stories. Elena spoke about her family and her love for art, while Alex shared memories from his childhood and the adventures he dreamed of taking. By the time they returned to the group, Alex felt a sense of closeness he hadn't expected. The park had become more than just a place to visit, it had become the backdrop for a connection that was quietly deepening between them. Later that afternoon, as the group continued their sightseeing, Alex and Elena wandered slightly behind the others, exploring a narrow cobblestone street lined with small artisan shops. The sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting a warm glow on the old buildings. Elena paused in front of a tiny bakery, peering through the window at an assortment of pastries. "These look amazing," she said, her eyes lighting up. Alex laughed softly. "Do you want to try one?" She nodded and they stepped inside. The aroma of fresh bread and sweet fillings filled the small shop. Alex ordered a couple of pastries and they found a quiet corner to sit. As they shared the treats, their conversation turned toward the trip itself. Elena admitted she often traveled alone and rarely found someone she felt completely comfortable with. Alex, in turn, realized how easy it was to talk to her, how natural the conversation flowed without awkward pauses. For a moment, the bustling street outside seemed to fade away. The two of them sat side by side, smiling quietly at one another, and Alex felt a subtle shift. Something unspoken but significant was beginning to grow between them. The simplicity of the moment, the shared pastries, the warm sunlight, and the feeling of being understood, made the day unforgettable, marking the start of a bond that neither had anticipated but both recognized instantly. That evening, back at the hotel, the group gathered for a casual dinner in the dining hall. The chatter of tourists filled the room, but Alex and Elena found themselves lingering near the windows, away from the noise, quietly reflecting on the day. Elena looked out at the city lights and said softly, "There's something about seeing a place for the first time that feels almost magical." It's like you notice things you'd never see at home. Alex nodded in agreement. I feel the same way. Today felt different, like we weren't just visiting the city but discovering it together. They shared stories about past travels, favorite memories, and places they hoped to visit in the future. Alex realized how rare it was to meet someone who listened so intently, who seemed genuinely interested in not only the sights, but also in his thoughts and experiences. As dinner ended, they walked slowly back to their rooms along the quiet hotel corridors. Neither spoke much, but the comfortable silence between them carried a sense of intimacy and trust. Alex felt a growing certainty that this trip had become more than sightseeing, it had become a journey of connection, and Elena was at the center of it. Before parting for the night, Elena turned and smiled. Tomorrow will be another adventure, she said. I'm glad we're exploring it together. Alex smiled back, realizing he couldn't imagine experiencing it with anyone else. The trip, the city, and even the crowds faded into the background. What mattered most was the quiet bond that was forming, subtle but undeniable. The next afternoon, the tour group visited a historic district filled with narrow streets, colorful buildings, and small cafes tucked between stone walls. While most of the group wandered in clusters, Alex and Elena drifted slightly behind, drawn by a quieter path lined with flowering trees. The sun was low, casting a golden light that made the cobblestones shimmer. Elena paused to admire a small fountain, its water sparkling in the sunlight. Alex watched her for a moment, noticing the way her expression softened when she focused on the small details around her. Places like this feel alive, she said, her voice gentle. It's not just the buildings or the streets, it's the people, the stories, everything that's happened here. Alex nodded. I think that's why I like traveling. It's not just about seeing, it's about feeling. They walked side by side, talking about their favorite parts of the trip so far and laughing quietly at small observations. Occasionally, they stopped to take photographs or sketch little scenes in their notebooks, enjoying the shared quietness. By the time they rejoined the main group, Alex felt a sense of calm he hadn't realized he needed. Walking with Elena had turned an ordinary sightseeing afternoon into something more personal and memorable. He began to understand that their connection was growing not through grand gestures, but through these small, shared moments, the unspoken understanding that made them both feel seen and understood. Later that evening, the group returned to the hotel after a full day of sightseeing. While others rested or chatted in the lobby, Alex and Elena found themselves lingering near the terrace, overlooking the city as twilight settled in. The streets below were quieting, and the fading sunlight cast soft shadows across the rooftops. Elena leaned slightly against the railing, her eyes focused on the horizon. I feel like I can finally breathe here, she said softly. Being somewhere new, away from everything familiar, it gives you perspective. Alex nodded, sensing the vulnerability in her tone. It's nice to have someone to share it with, he replied. Not just the sights but the feelings too. For a long moment they stood in silence, the quiet between them filled with unspoken understanding. Alex realized that trust was forming naturally, not through words, but through the simple act of being present with each other. Then Elena turned to him with a small, tentative smile. Thank you for listening, she said. I don't often feel like people really hear me. Alex smiled back. I do, he said simply. I really do. In that quiet twilight, overlooking the city, something shifted. Their friendship deepened into a bond marked by trust and mutual respect, a connection that promised to grow stronger with each shared experience on the trip. The following morning, the group set out for a longer excursion to a nearby historic village known for its cobblestone streets and artisan workshops. Excitement buzzed through the air as the tourists boarded the bus, but Alex and Elena sat together near the window, planning how they would explore once they arrived. As soon as they reached the village, the group split into smaller clusters to tour different sites. Alex suggested they start with the local craft market. The narrow streets were lined with colorful stalls selling handmade pottery, textiles, and jewelry. Elena's eyes lit up as she admired the intricate designs and unique details in each piece. Look at this, she said, holding up a small painted vase. The colors are incredible, you can tell so much care went into it. Alex smiled. It's amazing how people can create something so personal that tells a story without words. They wandered through the market together, stopping to talk with artisans, asking questions about techniques and materials. Elena even sketched a few of the crafts in her notebook, while Alex took photos, capturing the moment. By the time they reached a quiet cafe for a break, they had shared laughter, observations, and stories about the places they had each visited in the past. The morning felt like more than sightseeing. It was an adventure they were experiencing side by side. As they sipped their drinks, Alex realized that the trip had become something unexpected. A journey of connection, understanding, and shared curiosity, with Elena becoming an essential part of it. That afternoon, after leaving the cafe, Alex and Elena wandered down a quiet side street, away from the main tour group. The sun had begun to dip, casting long shadows across the cobblestones, and the air carried a gentle chill. Elena slowed her pace and glanced at Alex. "Can I tell you something a little personal?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "Of course," he replied encouragingly. She took a deep breath. "I usually travel alone. I like it that way because it keeps things simple, no expectations, no attachments, but being here with you feels different. It's comforting, and I haven't felt that in a long time." Alex felt a warmth spread through him. "I'm glad," he said softly. "I feel the same way. You make this trip feel more alive, more meaningful. It's not just the places we're visiting, it's sharing it with you." Elena smiled a little shyly. "I was worried you'd think I'm strange for saying that." "Not at all," Alex assured her. "I understand completely. I think this is the start of something worth remembering." They continued walking, side by side, with a quiet intimacy that had begun to form over shared experiences and small moments. Neither needed to speak for the connection to be understood. It was in the way they walked, laughed, and noticed the details of the world together. By the time they rejoined the group, the bond between them had quietly deepened, solidifying into a sense of trust and mutual care that would shape the rest of their journey. As night fell, the group returned to the hotel after a day of exploring the village. While most of the tourists headed to their rooms or gathered in small clusters in the lobby, Alex and Elena decided to take a short walk around the hotel grounds. A small fountain near the entrance glistened under the soft glow of lanterns, and the sound of water created a calming rhythm in the quiet night. They found a bench nearby and sat down, watching the ripples dance across the surface. Elena spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never realized how peaceful a simple fountain could feel. Back home, I'm always surrounded by noise and deadlines." Alex nodded, understanding her completely. "It's easy to forget how much space and quiet matter until you experience them. This feels like a small escape." They shared stories about their daily lives, dreams, and small regrets, laughing softly at the occasional awkward pause. The conversation flowed naturally, and Alex noticed a warmth and openness in Elena that he hadn't seen before. For a moment, they were just two people sitting by a fountain, away from expectations, schedules, or anyone else's eyes. And in that stillness, a quiet trust and mutual understanding began to grow, laying the foundation for a bond that felt rare and meaningful. Later that night, back in their rooms, Alex found himself thinking about the day. The streets, the fountain, and Elena's quiet smile kept replaying in his mind. There was something about the way she noticed details and responded to the world that made him feel unusually understood. The next morning, before the group headed out, Elena approached him quietly in the lobby. "Can we take a different path today?" she asked. "There's a part of the city I've been wanting to show someone who might appreciate it." Alex nodded eagerly. "Lead the way." They walked through winding alleys and hidden courtyards that seemed untouched by tourists. Sunlight filtered through overhanging trees, and small cafes and artisan shops lined the streets. Elena shared stories about the area, its history, legends, and hidden gems that most visitors missed. "I like sharing this with you," she admitted, her voice soft. "It feels like a secret we get to enjoy together." Alex smiled, feeling the weight of the trust she placed in him. "I feel the same way," he said. "It's special because it's just ours." The hidden streets, the quiet moments, and their shared secret made Alex realize that this trip was no longer just about sightseeing. It had become a journey of connection, discovery, and the first steps towards something neither of them had expected, but both wanted to explore. As the day began to wind down, Alex and Elena returned to the hotel slightly ahead of the group. The late afternoon sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the city's skyline reflected the fading light in the windows of nearby buildings. They found a quiet terrace overlooking the city streets. Elena leaned on the railing, watching the world below, while Alex stood beside her, feeling a mixture of excitement and calm. "I like this time of day," Elena said softly. It's like everything slows down just enough for you to notice what really matters. Alex nodded. Yeah, it feels easier to think here, away from all the noise. Their conversation drifted naturally to their personal hopes and dreams. Elena spoke about the challenges she faced in her work and how rare it was for her to feel genuinely seen by someone else. Alex shared moments from his past, adventures, mistakes, and lessons learned. For a long while, they simply stood together in comfortable silence, letting the city lights flicker around them. The closeness between them had grown into something unspoken but undeniable, a quiet understanding that words could only partially capture. As twilight gave way to evening, Alex realized that these conversations, small, honest, and intimate, were becoming the heart of their connection. It was in these shared moments that he felt closest to Elena, understanding her not just as a travel companion, but as someone who could become truly important in his life. The following morning, a soft drizzle began to fall over the city, turning the cobblestone streets glistening and slick. Most of the group stayed under awnings or inside cafes, but Alex and Elena grabbed umbrellas and decided to explore the quieter streets alone. The rain added a gentle rhythm to their walk, and the usually bustling alleys seemed almost deserted. Elena laughed softly as they splashed through shallow puddles, her joy unguarded and contagious. Not many people enjoy a rainy morning like this, Alex remarked, smiling at her energy. I do, she replied, her eyes sparkling. There's something refreshing about it, like the world gets a chance to start over for a moment. They ducked into a small bookshop, shaking off the rain and wandering between shelves filled with old, leather-bound volumes. Elena picked up a worn journal and opened it, showing Alex a quick sketch she had made of the fountain from the previous night. I like capturing things that feel alive, she said, moments you can remember even after they're gone. Alex nodded, realizing that the trip had become more than sightseeing. It was about noticing the world together, sharing small experiences, and finding a quiet intimacy in these fleeting, rainy moments. As they stepped back into the drizzle side by side, he felt a deeper connection forming, one that didn't need grand gestures, just the simple act of being present with each other. That evening, after the rain had softened to a gentle mist, Alex and Elena decided to take a stroll along the riverside promenade. The city lights reflected off the water, creating a shimmering ribbon that stretched into the distance. They walked slowly, their umbrellas held side by side, enjoying the quiet hum of the river and the occasional splash of a passing boat. Elena paused to watch the ripples in the water, her expression thoughtful. There's something calming about this, she said softly, like all the noise and pressure just drift away for a while. Alex nodded, feeling the same sense of peace. It's nice to have a moment like this, he replied, just walking and talking, no schedules, no expectations. They shared stories from their childhoods and laughed at small, silly memories. Alex realized that these simple walks were the moments he treasured most, times when he felt completely present and genuinely connected with Elena. By the time they returned to the hotel, the bond between them had grown quietly but significantly. In the calm of the riverside evening, they had found a shared rhythm, a subtle trust that hinted at something deeper forming between them, something neither rushed nor forced, but entirely natural. Later that night, back at the hotel, Alex found himself lingering in the lounge while Elena poured herself a cup of tea. The soft glow of the lamps created a cozy atmosphere, and the faint murmur of the city outside made the room feel like a world apart. Elena sat across from him, her hands wrapped around the warm mug. I don't usually talk about this, she began, her voice low, but I feel comfortable with you, more than I have with anyone in a long time. Alex met her gaze, sensing the honesty in her words. I feel the same, he admitted. Being with you on this trip, it feels like we understand each other without having to say everything. She smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and vulnerability. It's rare for me to let someone in like this. I've always traveled alone, kept my distance. But here with you it feels safe to be myself. Alex leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. I'm glad, he said softly. I want you to feel that way, and I hope we can keep exploring not just the city but this connection too. They shared a quiet smile, the unspoken understanding between them growing stronger. In that calm, intimate space, Alex realized that this trip had become far more than sightseeing. It had become a journey of trust, openness, and the beginning of something meaningful that neither of them had anticipated. The next afternoon, the group reached a hilltop overlooking the city. Tourists snapped photos and pointed at landmarks, but Alex and Elena found a quieter spot along the edge, away from the crowd. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Elena leaned against a low stone wall, her eyes tracing the distant skyline. "It's amazing how different the world looks from up here," she murmured. "Everything seems smaller, calmer, simpler somehow." Alex joined her, feeling the same awe. "It makes you realize what really matters," he said. "All the stress and noise just fade away." They sat side by side in comfortable silence, letting the colors of the sunset wash over them. Elena spoke occasionally, sharing quiet thoughts about life, travel, and the small things that brought her joy. Alex listened, noticing how effortlessly she could make the moment feel personal and intimate. As the sun disappeared behind the horizon, he realized that these shared sunsets, the quiet, reflective moments, were becoming the heart of their connection. It wasn't just the places they visited. It was the way they experienced them together, noticing, appreciating, and quietly understanding each other in ways words alone could never capture. That night, after the group had returned to the hotel and the bustle of the day had settled, Alex and Elena stepped outside for a short walk. The streets were quiet, lit only by the soft glow of street lamps, and the sky overhead was dotted with stars peeking through a thin layer of clouds. They wandered slowly, letting the stillness of the evening wrap around them. Elena's voice was soft as she spoke about small dreams and little moments of happiness she cherished, the kind of things she rarely shared with anyone. Alex listened, captivated by her openness and the trust she was showing. At one point, they paused on a small bridge overlooking a gently flowing canal. The water mirrored the starlight above, creating a delicate shimmer that seemed almost magical. Alex turned to Elena. "I think moments like this are rare," he said quietly. "They remind you that the world has more to offer than just noise and routine." Elena nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And it's better when someone shares them with you," she replied, a hint of a smile on her lips. As they continued walking, side by side, Alex felt a deep sense of connection forming, one that was built not on grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but on the quiet, unspoken understanding they shared in these calm, fleeting moments beneath the stars.